Welcome on back, everybody, to the 2026 episode mid-season episode, whichever you want to call it, for listening to the Voices in Our Head Season 6. I had the joy of sitting down and meeting with this current visitor that we have at a con months ago here locally in Hagerstown called 4-State Comic-Con, and guess what, y'all? We have our first cosplayer in the mix, and oh my goodness, we kind of have a similarity. Everyone, say hello to our friend, Jen. Welcome on in again to listening to the Voices in Our Heads, where creative minds get together and talk about their creative processes in a world not meant for them, but definitely in need of their creations. And we have our first cosplayer. Hello, Jen.
Hello, good to see you again.
Good to see you again, too. So go ahead and tell us all about you, where to find you, your socials, any creations you make, and more.
Absolutely. So my name is Jen. I go by Jen.Cosplays45. I go by she, her pronouns as well. I do have a Linktree account. It's somewhere out there, but mostly I post on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Again, Jen.Cosplays45. That's mostly my cosplay content that you'll see. However, I do have a separate account called JenMouse45, and that's where I'll post book reviews, silly little skits, stuff like that. And then I do my own writing. I have an archive of our own, as well as a Wattpad. That's again JenMouse45. And I do have my first published book out on Amazon. It's called Normal. It's an autobiography of my first memories in life to whenever I was in my early 20s. So that's me.
Wow. So we've got quite the conversation ahead, everybody. We're going to be talking about cosplaying, books, and more. So if you have any questions to add on, I would love to have Jen back for another one in a future season. Definitely give us more questions. So when we met at 4-State Comic-Con, I was fascinated by your cosplay you were wearing at the con then. How did you even get started in cosplay?
And it was so exciting getting to meet you at 4-State Comic-Con as well, and like Artist Alley. It was so much fun. So let's see. So that day I was dressed as Sakura Kinomoto from Cardcaptor Sakura, so a lot of pink. And then the next day I was dressed as Daisy May. I have a vlog out there on my cosplay channel. But yes, I started cosplaying in 2020, right before we all got shut in and all that. So I found, so the reason why I'm wearing Nora Valkyrie today from the show Ruby is she's what inspired me to start cosplaying. So I found this jacket for $7 at a thrift store. And it had long sleeves, so with the help of my mom, we cut off the sleeves, we put on like these pink straps, we popped the color, put the red on. You know, I had a pink skirt and a white shirt in my closet, and then all the accessories just found their way to my home, and then I just put together the cosplay and everything. So, and then, you know, TikTok was starting up and everything. I kept hearing like the Canon audios, and I was like, well, I want to do that. So actually, I think it was the day 4-State Comic-Con was supposed to happen in 2020. I got on my Nora cosplay outfit. I filmed a couple of videos, took a bunch of photos, and from there on, it took off with more Ruby cosplays, animes, and other characters that I relate to.
So you kind of took a deep dive into it within the last handful or so or years and deep dove hard, it sounds like.
Feels that way, yeah.
Awesome. That's quite the repertoire, by the way, of, hey, I found this thing, let me turn it into this thing to turn into a costume. Thrifting for the win.
Yes, nice. It's a treasure trove. Just every time I go in, I'm just like, what can I find? Who can I make? So it's very exciting.
So you kind of let the pieces call out to you. You don't necessarily always go hunting. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Sometimes I do hunt, but I try not to set myself up for disappointment because I'm like, well, what if I don't find this piece here or there? So sometimes I go with the intention of finding it, and when I do, it feels amazing. It's the best feeling in the world. And then if I just find like extra pieces or get inspired and stuff, then I'll just pick them up, put them in my little cart, and take them home. So
love it. So which character have you done so far that's your favorite, regardless of whether or not you do it often or if it's just someone you've done once or twice or all the time?
Definitely Nora. I do her a lot. I was just her the other week for a recording and stuff. So, and I have on my cosplay accounts, I think it's like 9 or 10 different outfits of Nora that I did. So, and I just did one today where she's like a little cheerleader. So I love being Nora, and she's my favorite. Actually, I have a little plushie here of her. So she's one of my favorite characters, one of my favorite characters to cosplay as. More recently, I'll say, is Weiss from Ruby as well. I did her Volume 7 look, and that was a lot of pieces and trying to track everything down online. So, but
that would be a daunting task, depending on how many pieces some of the pieces came into as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because even like it came with like the dark blue gloves that she wears, but it wasn't the right shade of blue. It almost looked like a black, and I was like, nah. So I had to go online and look up those. You know, I found like earrings from an Etsy seller that came out really pretty. So I feel really pretty as her too.
Etsy for the win. Etsy coming in clutch. Is have you ever had any pieces made custom through somebody then?
No, not. Let me double check. Looking around the creative room. I don't think so. More like accessories, and then my friends got me the Nora Valkyrie hammer Magnaheed a couple years ago. So yeah, that one's really special. So I'll say that.
Yeah, thank you to friends who indulge in support, because they're literally that's like supporting somebody's sport, literally. Oh my goodness. So readers have a to-be-read list of books they aim to read in any order in any given day. Do you have a to-be-cosplay list? And if so, which characters are your top 5?
I love that. So yeah, let me see. So just going to do the cosplay list. We'll talk books another time. But I will say for cosplay list, I'm hoping to do Amryn from A Court of Thorn and Roses, My Melody from Hello Kitty Island Adventure. So I'm actually planning on making the dress from scratch, like actually sewing my own dress. So I'm a little feeling ambitious.
If it's your first dress, it's not a horrible choice, though.
It's very simple, which I needed. No ball gowns, but kudos to those that can sew ball gowns and very extravagant dresses. Job well done. Okay, we're going to start simple. We're doing My Melody. Rosie from Has Been Hotel. I love her. Nora Ice Kingdom, her jacket. I have it. I need to sew it. I just need to find time and motivation to do it. And then one more for funsies. I'll say Belle Dandy from Ah My Goddess. It's a very old anime. It's like late 90s, early 00s, something around in there. But that was the first anime series that I watched, and I absolutely love her and her character. So one day I will cosplay as her.
Belle Dandy is just such a joy of a character. Oh,
I love her.
If you want a good old school anime to watch and binge watch even,
yes,
that's a good one to get into with the cold weather and whatnot on the way, for sure.
Yes.
So, okay, TBR list. What's your to-be-read list for books then?
Depends if we're talking work-related or non-work related.
Both?
Both. Well, work-related, I'm a play therapist by day, so I work with the little ones and all this. So, but I'm reading books about like ADHD, grief and loss, just play therapy techniques and skills, trying to hone those, as well as just going back to the basics with child development. Like that's always important to learn about. And then for the funsies, I just finished reading A Court of War and Ruin. So I'm going to go and read the Starlight one next. I'm very excited. That one seems very nice and cozy, perfect for season. And trying to think. Oh, my friend gifted me last Christmas the Five Nights at Freddy's books. I can't remember which ones, but I do need to read those. I promised him I'd read them and review them.
I've had former students who love them. I taught high school for a long time, and they're so well written that like teenagers are like, I can sit down and read this in an afternoon and be entertained.
Nice.
Like a few of them had younger siblings who were like, would you read this with me? Sure, whatever. And they're like, no, legit. I'm like, oh my God, what happens next? Those are some of the best shorter reads, I think, when we're older. So I hope you enjoy them.
I have to read them now. I'm so excited.
Yes. So what have you learned most about yourself by becoming a cosplayer? Since it's rather recent a transformation.
I like that word, transformation. So that's how it feels every time I put on the cosplay. I go from little mousy Jen to extravagant pancake-loving Nora. And that's what I loved about cosplaying at first, was I could just pretend, dress up as that character for an hour or so. But I also learned, I've been thinking about this more recently, is like I've been able to be more creative and express myself. So I take like little things here and there, like from thrift stores or just whatever I find, and then I can sew it, make it look like a character or an original character. And I will say with the convention, since we met at convention, I did want to say too, I'm a very shy person. I have a lot of anxiety, a lot of social anxiety, don't like big crowds or anything like that. And at first when I was going to 4-State Comic-Con, I went with like my mom, I went with a friend, and I was like, okay, like safe people, yay, we love them. But then I started going by myself and I was like, I have no one to talk to. So but this much recent year, back in 2025, I did meet some lovely folks, some people that I could just hang out with. And it was a really good time, and I was really grateful that they just let me tag along, little lady that I am and stuff. And they're like, yeah, you can hang out, like let's go color and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. So it was a good time.
The crowd energy, because I did 2024 and it was a completely rowdier energy, but 2025 it was more people, but was so much more zen. It felt like.
It was very chill, and even Harrisburg like felt chill this year too, especially the second day, maybe because it was raining in the morning, but it was like very low, very just, I don't know, it was a very nice vibe, so enjoyed it.
Sure. So as an introvert myself, I find it intriguing that you're like, as soon as I put this costume on, is it that you are the character, so it's a degree of separation from yourself a little bit, or just because people are interacting with the character that you feel the anxiety maybe lessened? Because the fact that you went by yourself, I'm like, really? She was there by herself? Really?
I was by myself, and that's okay. Yeah, it could be like this externalizing piece or separation piece of just like, I pretend to be the character, at least in like videos and photos I can be. Whenever I'm at convention, I try to be myself, but I think being dressed as the character like sparks conversations, and people are like, oh my gosh, you're Nora Valkyrie, like you watch Ruby, or they're like, tell me about your cosplay and all this stuff. And I don't know, I like talking about my hobbies and interests. Even though I'm not a professional cosplayer, I'm just a closet cosplayer, but my hope is like to inspire others to cosplay and then be more self-assured in themselves and their abilities to be able to cosplay. So it's always my hope.
See, I'm very grateful for people who are of that nature with cosplay, because I'm saying this is someone who does Ren fairs and stuff too. Cosplay, dressing up to period accurate stuff, there's no age limit on that. I mean, at 4-State, there were ladies who were in their 60s, 70s, 80s dressing up, and not just for their grandkids. There were a couple of grandmoms who did that, but like some of them legit are cosplayers too, either professional or aspiring to be more. And it's just like seeing the intermesh of the crowds and people accepting it at more age levels to indulge in that play. It's so freeing.
It's all play, yay, play all day.
Hey, and you know the benefits of play therapy.
Oh yeah,
it probably extends well beyond into just the little kids.
Oh yeah, definitely. I remember one of my books is like skills that you can do with kids, and one of them did mention like dress up and cosplay, and I was like, oh, I know about that.
And honestly, like you even mentioned you're getting into other crafting stuff. I'm thinking like, okay, how many of us have grandparents that we wish we had learned how to sew from?
Yeah. Or at least paid attention, because everyone in my family sews or knits, and I'm just the designer.
Right. And I'm getting into that stage in my life where, my grandmother isn't around anymore, and I wish I'd paid attention. Yeah. Oh, so much. So why would you say it's so important for authors, writers, and so on and just saying this as an author and writer yourself even, why is it important to study costumes or clothing from various cultures and time periods for them in what kind of ways?
That's a really good question, very thought-provoking, because I'm not an expert in like time periods and all this stuff, but I know people who are. I'd be happy to point you in their direction. But I will say, with that being said, like consulting other people folks that are more knowledgeable about like different time periods, whether it's medieval, Renaissance, whatever that may be. Definitely want to do a lot of research. So looking at like credible sources, not just Wikipedia, but looking at like, more official sources, YouTube videos, I'm sure are great with that. Just seeing like what kind of work has been done before. So, and I feel like, yes, it is important because, especially if you're like in cosplay, like cosplaying these pieces, and you're like, you're gonna be walking around conventions, you're gonna enter competitions, photo shoots and all that, you probably want it to look accurate so people don't try to nitpick and all this stuff. So, but yeah, definitely for writing. I mostly write like fantasy and all that, so I'm kind of like anything goes, it's fine. But one day I want to do like a steampunk world and all this, and I'm like, that is a very intricate style, very, very distinguished style. So yeah, I've been putting together, I think PowerPoints are the way to go. Just setting up like some Google slides and being like, all right, this time period, like what are the different types of shirts, styles, pants, shoes, all that good jazz. So that's my take on it.
That's a nice way to get a little bit of a visual for your writing, for sure. Saying this as someone who writes characters that are immortal and they save every quality piece of clothing, apparently, because if you don't figure that out by the time you're an immortal, how are you surviving how old you are, in my opinion, a little bit. But also in some time periods, it's that accuracy thing, but also you mentioned like steampunk. And the first thing that comes to mind as a fantasy writer, even for me, is like steampunk clothes require a specific type of movement. You're not running easily in a steampunk outfit anywhere. And if you have them wearing the trench coat and the gown and this, they're going to be slowed down by that. Same as, little Miss Ma'am here in the metal armor is not going to move as fast as little Miss Ma'am down here in the leather armor. You got to keep those tiny things in play for sure, even movement-wise. So thank you for even leaning into that. What other impacts of cosplaying has it had on your own writing? Because you write yourself, you said.
Yes, so it's interesting because I used to write when I was little. I kind of explain it a little bit more in my Wattpad bio, but I wrote when I was little. I'd fill journals and journals and journals of just different stories that I'd come up with, mostly about my hamsters at the time. Like little silly things, little adventures they'd get on and all this stuff. So, but I think right when I started, I don't remember, I think it was like right when I started my master's degree program and I was writing research paper after research paper. Like my creative writing just went, because I didn't have time, I didn't have inspiration. So I was like, well, if I don't get back into it, that's fine. Then I got into cosplaying. And so with the cosplaying, I wanted to do, I never say the name of the show, but it's like Danganronpa or something like that. But the detective girl, I was like, she's like very smart, very cunning, very, I know everything. I was like, but what if it was the opposite? Like, what if she, was like a murderer or something in the school? So I was like, all right, I'm going to write this. So I started writing it, just like piecing it out. And I was like, I can't really get a visual on it. But I had her cosplay at the time. So I was like, well, I'll get into cosplay and, I'll just like put like the pink paint on me, represent the blood and all this stuff, because that's what it does in the show. And so I did, and I was like kind of like acting and all this stuff. I was looking at the pictures later, I'm like, ooh, this is good. And then all of a sudden the story clicked. And I was like, I know what I need to do. So I wrote like, I think it's 3 parts. And then each part has like a cover photo and all this. So each one represented that. And then I did like little TikTok videos. So I post those each day. And it seemed to work out. It's not my most popular story, but it got me back into it. And since then, I've been dressing up in cosplays, dressing up as the characters and using them as cover art or even just promotion.
That's actually a clever idea from like an embodiment perspective. I'm thinking as someone who has a stage management and theater background, actors talk about, I need something to get myself into being that character. And even voice actors for anime have sometimes said, I need to like hold a sword or wear a something to recall that character like instantly. And it's a good way to literally get inside their heads.
Definitely. Whatever helps.
So speaking of whatever helps, do you have any other tips or tricks for anyone wanting to get into cosplaying then?
Definitely have a lot of tips and tricks. I will shamelessly put a little plug here and say Cosplay Tea Time is a podcast that I founded and host. We're coming up on 4 years here soon. So we have a lot of videos on like tips and tricks, whether it be about specific like things like wig making, sewing, or even just like tips about like attending conventions and all that. So I definitely share a lot on there. But I will say, like my tips, if folks were to come up to me and ask, is to take it slow. It's like once you like watch a show and stuff, like say Nora, for instance, and be like, oh my gosh, like I want to dress up as her. I need this, 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 and this. Cosplaying can get pretty expensive pretty quick. So you definitely want to do like some research, figure out which pieces you need. There is an app called Cosplanner, I think. I can fact check that later on, but that helps with separating like each piece, like the process and all this. Even like using notes. I found out the other day you can put photos in your notes app and stuff. So that's been helpful with my melody, trying to figure out all these different colors, all these pinks and stuff. So yeah, but just take it slow. Be like, okay, like I want to cosplay this character, break it down. Don't con crunch. I haven't had that happen to me yet, and hopefully not, knock on wood, but I've seen cosplayers who do that. I imagine it's so exhausting trying to get everything done.
I've had that happen on the theater and in costuming, where literally, it's we're doing dress rehearsal and something, heaven forbid, on a costume fails, and you're the night before opening night repairing. It's no fun. No. We were doing a Midsummer Night's Dream, and Queen Titania's wings broke in half.
Oh no! Not the wing.
You can't have the Queen of all Fae with the smallest pair of wings, y'all.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a painful night.
Yeah, I can imagine. So
yes, definitely. Yeah, no sleep, no con crunch, please, y'all. Plan ahead.
Yes, plan ahead. Make sure you take breaks in cosplay, especially at convention. Like listen to your body and everything. So, and then of course, cosplay who you enjoy. I think is important.
Yeah, definitely double down on the listening to your body in the summer months too, because we had, even in April for 4 State, there were people who were like overheating and not hydrating. And it's like, dude, it's April. I could not, at Harrisburg in August, people walking around in like Pokemon, full on big heads, and then the furry suits, or even people who were wearing, like there was this one person walking around in, I want to say they were from one of the Dragon Age video games, walking around in armor.
I saw them.
It's August. How are you breathing? Please hydrate, y'all. So much. So given that even my book series was inspired from a fan fiction I wrote like a lifetime ago, do you feel fan fiction is a safe space for author and writers to find inspiration, and what is the line for plagiarism?
It's a good question, because I do want to say, like, it's pretty cool that you were inspired to continue writing your fan fiction. I think that's like a really cool idea. So let me see. I will say, personally, I do write fan fiction, but it's mostly fantasy and like fluffy stuff. So like a lot of weddings. I like take the Ruby characters and I'm like, now marry each other because the writers are taking so long. It's okay, take your time. But at the same time, like I'm a little anxious waiting, so I'm just gonna marry these characters. But yeah, I will say mostly for those it's kind of fine because they're probably a little bit older. I can get away with like certain things. Doesn't seem like they matter because I haven't gotten an email yet. So, but I do like writing them, and I like getting the feedback on it, being like, oh, this is so cute, like all these little moments and stuff. So try to tie in those. I will say I do have my own Ruby original character team called Team Jalapeno, but the events that happen in their story, because they're the children of the main Ruby characters, it takes place after like the war, like after all said and done. We're saying in that show, because it's not said and done yet, but one day it will be. So when all said and done, they're children, they build up a new academy, and they're like, all right, like we're gonna do this, and then they have to fight all these like other monsters and all that. So therefore I can add like new components that were discovered or in the process of being discovered. So things that haven't been discovered yet, like as this world's beginning anew. And I feel okay to use like characters and their powers, attributes, but like put a different twist on it or the world they're in. So it's like, yes, you can use what they have, but like kind of put like a different little twist or like maybe different dialogue as well. So plagiarize.
The twists are the nice parts there for sure. And I think that's where we're getting that play on creativity. So what are your thoughts on fan fiction then as a tool for purposes of experimentation?
I feel like it definitely helps, especially if you're not familiar with like original character making. I mean, I do have a list out there or I think it's on my personal computer, just like all the different components that I need when I build an original character. But for somebody brand new, it might not be as easy. So using like your favorite characters, like comfort characters, knowing what they've been through and all this can kind of help. It's something familiar. You can add new components too, but it helps them discover like that person's type of writing. Like, how do I world build? How do I scene build? How do I create dialogue? How do I show that the characters interact? So I feel like it helps get the creative brain cells going to then eventually like write out their own original stories.
I like how you played it into even it's building something as key as a dialogue skill, because some people I've worked with are like, dialogue hard, because dialogue you have to be honest.
I know.
Or reliable. You have two choices. And that's what makes it hard. There's no gray area. You're either one or the other. So yeah. How do creatives though fight burnout, regardless of their medium, be it cosplaying or word making?
Definitely. So I think it's just taking your time. Like, take your time, don't rush things. I think getting inspired, whether it's reading books, traveling, listening to music, that's what always helps me whenever I hear a song and I'm like, this kind of describes like a character. Maybe I could use it in the background of a fight scene or something. I think talking to others too, just social support is always key. Just finding out what drives and inspires you to write. And then for cosplaying, for me at least, what I have found is just getting into my favorite cosplay, aka Nora. But just getting into my favorite cosplay, just kind of vibe in it, take pictures, videos, and all this stuff. And eventually I'll be like, okay, like maybe I can do another cosplay another day. I also think going to conventions also helps too, because then you get like a lot of compliments, you start to feel good about yourself, you're kind of interacting with like other cosplayers, talking about shows and art and all this good stuff. So I feel like social support is key. So folks who are interested in what you are and like vibe with and all that stuff, like they'll come to you.
And honestly, a lot of people at cons especially are super supportive of cosplay, to the point of like where you will think you're there by yourself, and the next thing you know, you have a swarm of other people who are like, can I take your picture every 5 minutes? So learn your limits, y'all. If you're like me, I haven't cosplayed in years for a reason. I'm a hugger, but the hug-o-meter needs a refill once in a while. So I would rather be on this side of the camera taking a picture of all of you amazing people who cosplay, because for sure it is an art. In my opinion, might as well be a sport. So where else can we find you and continue to love on you and all the cool things you do, my friend?
Yeah, so like I said, for TikTok, try to post a couple times a week some fun videos, Instagram, whenever the algorithm likes me. Yay. YouTube, mostly for vlogs. I think I have like a craftsmanship thing that should be out or coming out soon. One of those things. Like I said, for GenMouse45, try to post once a month on YouTube, as well as Wattpad. I have some fun little adventure stories, fluff stories, like fluff and inks. Those are my cup of tea. And as well as Cosplay Tea Time, the podcast that I founded and host. So it's just cosplayers coming together. We dress up, drink tea, and talk about random topics. So it's a lot of fun.
It sounds like a complete blast. So check out all of her cool things in the description boxes below. And above all, everyone, take care of yourselves. You know you're worth it.